Why did Meghan make Kate cry before her wedding? Was it something she said, or was it just the way she said it? Meghan Markle and Kate Middleton could not be any more different, and in today's video I'm going to be looking at their behaviours and personality types to see how it all went wrong. So today let's talk about royal wives at war. If you're a people watcher and you love to analyse your friends and family and often question why that one person drives you mad, then this is the channel for you. So make sure that you subscribe and hit that notification bell, as this video is just one of a whole series on why people do what they do. Now, if you've been following this series of videos on personality profiles, then do feel free to jump to the time I've put down here, as I'm just going to do a very quick recap for those who haven't seen this before. So let's start with a really quick recap on where we're up to. So you can watch the full video here, but here I'm going to run through the 4 basic behavioural types. Now, we've got our reds and our yellows, who are extroverts, and we have our blues and our greens, who are introverts. We can then break this down even further into our reds and blues being our task-focused behaviours and our yellows and greens being our people-focused behaviours. So we have our reds as task-focused extroverts, we have our yellows as people-focused extroverts, we have our greens as our people-focused introverts, and we have our blues as our task-focused introverts. Now, we all have all 4 of these colours in our personalities, but one of these colours is going to be dominant. So if you look at these colours below, they are all different, but they all have the same percentage of red within them. In some, it's just stronger than others. But if you had a mixture of, say, red and yellow, you would exhibit the traits of either more red or yellow, depending on the percentage and how they've been diluted by each colour. I am going to go into more detail with these as each new video comes out. Now, we also have our natural and our adaptive behavioural style. Our natural style is the behaviour that we feel most comfortable with. It's how we are with friends and family, and it's probably our most relaxed state. Our adaptive behaviour, on the other hand, is the behaviour that we exhibit when we need to temporarily alter what we do. It's not alter who we are, it's about altering what we do. So we adapt what we do for either the other person or for the situation. And we are all able to, if we want to, adapt when we can. But once we're away from the other person or the situation, we tend to revert back to our natural behavioural type, known as our comfort zone. Now, there isn't such a thing as a best colour or profile, as all 4 have incredible strengths. But wherever you sit personally, it is perfectly natural to perceive the colours or quadrants different to your own in a negative light. So the assertive red, for example, sees the green as being indecisive, whereas the peace-loving green sees the red as aggressive. So looking at the 4 colours, we do get the greatest conflict when we look at diagonal colours. So the red versus green and the blue versus yellow. But there's also the question of, do opposites attract? And I'll answer that later in the video. Meghan exhibits the behavioural traits of a red, and if the reports are true that she makes demands on her staff with early morning emails, and combined with Harry's "why did I ever say that" comment of "what Meghan wants, Meghan gets," then she does tick many of the red boxes. She's assertive, direct, results orientated, and makes demands from those around her. These red behavioural traits, however, show Meghan as someone who wants to get things done her way, and she's not particularly interested in maintaining relationships along the way. So here we have now Kate, who waited patiently to marry her prince and join the royal family, only to be criticised for being boring, lazy and bland. The Queen herself was alleged to have called Kate Duchess Doolittle. But the Greens need time to adjust and settle, and life for Kate was so calm, and her staff's only criticism was that she wanted to do too much herself around the home, leaving them with nothing to do. So Kate is the homemaker, she's a peacekeeper, and she was in her element, and there was no one trying to rock this very calm boat. Until, that is, Harry brings Meghan home to meet the family. So as a steady green, Kate will have wanted to welcome Meghan into the family, and would have more than likely been focusing on building a long-term relationship over time. In the Greens' eyes, there's no need to rush. They need time to build up this mutual openness and trust. Whereas Meghan, on the other hand, as a fiery red, would be eager and excited to get things moving as quickly as possible. Why wait? Let's do it now. And in her own words, she wanted to hit the ground running. So from the very first meeting, I would expect that the tension would have been quite evident between the two wives. Kate may even have felt hurt, as it's really easy to misread confidence as arrogance. And from the other side, Meghan would have felt underwhelmed by the lack of enthusiasm and potentially misreading this non-emotion for indifference. William and Harry would then have focused on protecting their partners, as almost from day one we would have seen conflict. Reds, however, tend to be really comfortable with conflict. They don't see it as anything negative. In fact, Reds may even initiate competitive interactions just for the sheer challenge of winning the discussion. Greens, on the other hand, despise conflict, and the mere thought of confrontation makes them want to run in the opposite direction. Now, Kate from the outset may have felt threatened, not by status, but the simple ability of joining a conversation without feeling intimidated would be enough to stop this internal churning of unease. Because whatever a red does that upsets a green, the green says and does nothing, but it all builds up inside, and at some stage it has to come out. But Reds don't think about the impact that they have on the other person. It's not that they don't care, they do. They just don't realise. It's like, imagine walking through a shop with a bag over your shoulder and you're knocking things off shelves as you go past without even realising that it's going on. That's a bit like being a red. They're so focused on their destination that they're just not aware of the potential trail of damage and devastation that they'll leave behind them. Because one thing about a red is that they are focused so much on what's in front of them that they never look back. But the green, however, will walk through the shop observing every obstacle in their way and silently working out the path of least resistance. They will be the ones avoiding eye contact as they step aside and move out of the way of the straight line Reds. And the greens will also be the ones behind them making the apologies and replacing all the items and putting them back on the shelves. So why did Meghan make Kate cry before her wedding? Well, Reds, we know, can be stubborn and they like getting their own way. They love being in control and dictating the way they want things to happen. They're not interested in the Greens' chit-chat. So the Reds get really frustrated when people just don't say what they think. It's a bit like they constantly go, get to the blinking point, as they have absolutely no time or interest in all this sugar-coated waffle surrounding what the Greens are actually trying to say. Well, the Greens, on the other hand, they love to ask lots of questions. They love to listen patiently and they love to natter and are genuinely interested in the feelings of the other person. Because the last thing that the Greens want to do is to upset anyone. So it's often easier to say nothing and keep all this frustration tightly hidden inside. But in the weeks leading up to the wedding, we know that every bride will want it to be perfect. But the red bride will also want everyone to do everything exactly as she wants it when she wants it. So there was bound to have been dozens of occasions that frustrated Kate, who would just smile and stay quiet. But the bridesmaid's dress fitting now involved Charlotte. And there's no greater emotional trigger than seeing your young child caught up in your own dramas. And this, for me, is where the conflict lies. Because Meghan, as the red, will have had a vision and know what she wants without ever considering whether the other person has any opinion on the matter at all. Kate, as the green, would struggle to communicate when something wasn't right. The Greens tend to be more passive when assertiveness is necessary to avoid this interpersonal confrontation, because Greens hate conflict at all costs. So I don't think there would have been any fallout over the particular issue with the dress. Kate wouldn't cry if she didn't like the colour of the bow or the style of the skirt. The dress is completely irrelevant. Kate's tears would have been the release of weeks of frustration and anguish that had been welling up inside her. Because every comment, look and conversation between Kate and Meghan will have been stored up, and on this day all Kate would have needed to do was make a single suggestion that made Meghan feel like her authority was being challenged. Because the Reds' response would be to make it perfectly clear that Kate's opinion was neither valid nor welcomed. And it's at this point that the Green releases all their emotions. It's a bit like they get to the point where they go, enough is enough. And rather than the Red style of having a vocal attack, the Green's way of showing how they feel is generally to break down in tears. I don't know why, the song Coward of the County by Kenny Rogers has just sprung to mind. And it's like the early lines of walk away from trouble when you can. And then 20 years of crawling was bottled up inside him. Now, I don't think it takes 20 years for these frustrations to be released, but the Greens do hold back, whereas the Reds shoot from the hip. So there's got to be the question here, can opposites attract? The answer is yes, definitely it can. The calming Green can bring stability and a sense of reason to this strong-willed Red. And the drive of the Red can encourage the steady Green to take action. So I don't think with Kate and Meghan the feud had anything to do with jealousy or title or role. I just think we have two women whose only connection was that they married two brothers. And other than that, Kate and Meghan could not have been any further apart and taking their lives in any more opposite directions. So if you've missed the previous videos in this series, you can always watch them on the playlist that I'm putting up here. My next video will look at Prince Harry, as I'll be talking all about our sunshine yellows. Don't forget to share my video, and if you have got this far, well done. Give yourself a big like, you deserve it. Leave me your questions and comments in the box below, and I will see you next time.